Total recount coming in at -1 to 538.
Morning, Vic. Morning, Prath. How are you guys? Hopefully, you guys had a great weekend. Anything stand out to you guys this weekend during your scans? For me, is that there is a lot of themes, a lot of potential themes. Morning, brother. Morning, Brecca. How are you? Yeah, there is a lot of themes out there. You've possibly got the China theme, and obviously, I was just looking at PDD, and I do not love the earnings action, but it's early, and this thing's been in a pretty decent trend recently. Baba, same deal, gap up, but being dragged down just a touch, I would imagine, by PDD. You've got potentially Solars, FSLR, NXT, RUN, Sedge. You've got semiconductors, and that's going to be based on NVIDIA earnings, right? NVIDIA, AMD, AVGO, CRDO, MU, ALAB. And there's a lot in that sector. All in on ETH. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that works too, I guess. Yeah, there's a lot going on out here. The gold names might be breaking out. Obviously, the gold miners have been acting even a little bit better than gold itself, because gold's just been going sideways. But meanwhile, some of these gold names are acting fantastic. Like you look at KGC, absolutely no give back from this breakout, and looks awesome. It looks awesome. Yeah, maybe ETH can use it. Maybe it's possible that Ethereum could use a little bit of digestion, but this AEHR doesn't look up half bad either. Yeah, RSI, that is correct. That's your gaming, gambling name. And then you've also got DraftKings. These look, this looks pretty dang good too. You also have like your travel and leisure names. Obviously, your airlines, not AAL, that's your laggard, but UAL and DAL, those have been acting a whole lot better. Win has been acting really nice, gapping up this morning, almost hit 117. CZR, that's another. Wait, what is it? LVS, Las Vegas Sands. So yeah, some of these have been acting a whole lot better than others, like your gaming, your leisure, your travel. It's there's a lot going on out here at the moment. So I don't really see a ton to complain about. There's a bunch of potential themes. You can play some ETFs on, the rate cut side of things, which might be something like LabU if you like the XBI. It could be Nail if you like XHB. Now I think those are a little bit. That one's a little bit gone at the moment, but you could look at something like Pulte. You could look at something like KBH, and it's not even that. Let me see if I can pull this up on my scan really quick. You also have like this engineering and construction group, this TPC. I mean, these names are deadly slow, right? But these are officially in stage two uptrends, right? You can make a really nice move on earnings, and then again on earnings, you gap up, you go sideways, you're tightening up, looks awesome. And it's not just that one, it's like an ACM. It's also the problem with these names, and the reason I won't play them is some of these are just so deadly slow. This GVA, if these were a whole lot faster, I mean, these are beautiful. But yeah, there is like themes galore. Where do you look? For a moment there, I thought the rally was pretty narrow. And then the more I look, the more I realize, like, nope, we are actually broadening out in a pretty big way. So, like, the mega caps can do a whole bunch of nothing. And I would still feel pretty good about where the market's at because there's so many potential themes. Right? It's like sometimes, and the issue is for a lot of people is you're going to get stuck just being like, oh, market's not healthy, Palantir's getting its ass kicked, when the reality might just be the exact opposite. The market is super healthy, Palantir's getting its ass kicked. Right? Like stocks, this is what they do after really long periods of uptrends. They go up, they go sideways, they go up, they go sideways, and at some point, taking a bit of a breather is totally healthy. You go on this long extended uptrend since May of 2023. Yes, there's some periods that it comes down, but you make this super long move, and a whole new base is warranted. Yeah, ANET's fine. This thing's totally fine. ANET, Dash, VRT, these are fine. Like this VRT has made an insane move from $15, right? There'd be nothing wrong if this thing just paused for like another, who knows how long, right? Another year. Sounds crazy, but you make 1,000% move, guys, and the market's just got to, chop up the undisciplined and consolidate for a really long time. Yeah, Bitcoin not perfect in my opinion. TME and ALAB, yeah, two different groups, right? TME, you're running with your Chinese equities. This is kind of forming a little pennant up here. ALAB, in my opinion, I wouldn't be buying any semis right now until after NVIDIA posts earnings. How do I decide on entry point? Is it 5 minute or a 5 minute opening range break? So I've done multiple, right? Here's something with thinking about entry point. I think people get so hung up on the fact that you have to nail some kind of an entry, and I often think to myself, what's more important, having the perfect average or showing up on the right day? And for me, it's more so showing up on the right day. Like I would rather show up on a day where I know this stock is really going to push away from my average. And at that point, if you don't nail a 5 minute opening range break, what's another option? A small little pullback into VWAP. What's another option? A break over prior day high. What's another option? Right? Maybe a pullback into a ascending daily moving average. What's another option? Right? Like there are a lot of ways that you can get situated in a stock. And I think kind of putting a lot of emphasis on what's the entry is not nearly as important as what's the day that I'm showing up to buy. Like, is today the actual day in which I'm going to click the buy button and it's going to press away from my average? That to me is far more important. Yeah, that's a great question. How to work out when to watch relative strength and when to trade it. Okay, so very simple. When the market's going down, say I'm watching a technique, call it a semi, right? Is the semiconductor likely to work when the market's going down? So when the general market, the NASDAQ, the QQQ is going down, and I'm looking at a semiconductor stock, is that stock really likely to work when the NASDAQ is down 0.75%? Right? The answer there is probably not. And so what I like to do is I just want to track relative strength. Like if the NASDAQ's coming down 0.75%, and the semiconductor stocks that I'm watching are all hanging out near highs or are all very strong on the day, or the Nasdaq's down 1% and the semiconductor group as a whole is up a 0.25% or a 0.5%. That's relative strength. When the market firms up, or the market starts to bounce, or the market turns, or the market's in an uptrend, if that group consistently is outperforming the market when the market's acting poor, or it's outperforming the market when the market's acting well, I know that there's accumulation taking place there. I know that there's institutions stepping up for those stocks, or they're just not selling these names when the market's going down. If that's the case, I want to be a buyer, right, when the market's turning up, because I'm most likely, if this basket of stocks is flat when the market's down or is up more when the market's up, I know that these names have an underlying buyer in them. At the very least, they don't have a seller. So now when I'm not dealing with market pressure and the market's going up, these stocks tend to outperform. And those are the names that I would want to be in, right? When I go to hit the buy button, they're going to really push away from my average, and they're going to push away quickly. And that's the whole idea, right? I'm in them and they move away from my average quickly. Will I anticipate a sell the news event on the actual rate cut or sell your? No, I don't ever want to anticipate anything. I just want to react, right? I don't want to assume that I know anything, right? The market can stay super irrational for a long time. The market can just continue stocks in an uptrend for a long time. If I were anticipating stuff, for instance, I would have just thought a long time ago that my CCL was going to break down this entire time. Yet I've just been sitting here this entire sideways, not anticipating a breakdown, just sitting here and just hanging out, not doing anything because it wasn't breaking down. It wasn't breaking out. So I wasn't anticipating that it was going to break down. I'm just hanging out. And then eventually on Friday, market got nice and strong and off to the races to 52 week high. So I don't want to anticipate anything in the market. I just want to let lagging moving averages work so that I can think less. Right? My job is just to figure out where's money going, where's money leaving. My job is not to figure out how high something can go. No, I didn't take any trades on Friday. I was a little bit like as soon as Jerome Powell started speaking, things just kind of started to go vertical. The only thing I wanted to take was TNA. My issue was I was already in TNA on the 15th, and I added a little bit more improperly on the 19th, and I took it off. And part of the reason that I took it off was I wanted to run long TNA, short, or really long SQQQ to kind of hedge um, that TNA position. And I didn't have the short on the NASDAQ. So I just didn't want to eat a loss without a hedge, right? So if like the NASDAQ's going down, I'd be making money there, but losing a little less money in my TNA. And then the inverse, when the QQQ was going up, I'd be making more money in the TNA. And I didn't have that hedge on. So I kind of screwed that trade up. And yes, on Friday, it just started going absolutely nutty right in the morning. And I just didn't chase this candle, right? Like this happened. I blinked and I was just like, what the hell happened here? And I was just like, well, damn. So kind of sucked. What made me decide to go long on Tesla? Well, one, I think, Tesla should be not financial advice on everybody's focus, this week. This thing has had bad news galore, and all this thing has done is just tighten up, right? It's building higher lows, it's building lower highs, it's getting nice and tight on the right hand side of the chart, right? It's one of those names that when it trends similarly out of a higher low setup and flat base, it can trend very, very nicely, super explosive, right? 200-point moves. Like I want to catch that. And, that trade like that could make your year. So, yeah, I mean, it's good to pay attention to. How about now? Is that better? Cool. Yeah, I wouldn't stress about being late on Tesla, right? This thing has just been super choppy. I know people will look at this and they'll look at the big move on Friday and they'll think that they're late. You're not late to anything, guys. You don't worry about one day. If a stock's really going to go higher, first of all, this thing hasn't even broken out on the weekly. So you've got just a really simple bull flag breakout. You'll have a high type flag. You'll have an earnings gap up. You'll have a high volume close. You'll have undercut and rallies. You'll have pullbacks to ascending moving averages, moving average undercut and rallies. So there are so many ways to potentially get involved that you just look at one candle and everybody goes, oh man, I knew I should have bought this thing at 325. I knew I should have bought this thing at 328. And they keep worrying about where they should have bought it instead of focusing on the next spot with the same thesis. So yeah, I wouldn't worry about. I hear people all the time like somebody even said on Friday, like, did it hurt? And I was like, for what? And they're like, oh, that you weren't situated for the rally. Well, for one, I'm still sitting in longs, so no, it didn't hurt. I made money, and even on my short, I made money. So who's who's the smart guy now? And two, I don't worry about just one day, one rip in the market that I didn't take advantage of. That's like, again, I was talking to a few of the guys yesterday on X, and it's like, it's just one day of your long career. You know how many trades in your life you're going to miss? Far too many. And that's okay. Like that's just trading. I have no price target on Tesla at all. I don't keep price targets. I use lagging moving averages. Yeah, there's a lot of stocks that haven't seen expansion, right? You got a name like Tesla hasn't even broken out yet. You got a name like Dash that might just be reclaiming its 50-day, right? You got some of these gold names like AEM might just be setting in a little flat top breakout, right? You got a name like WDC, although super slow and still kind of extended with an STX, also maybe setting up a little high type flag. You got CCL with another flat base potential. So there's, the market hasn't even gone anywhere yet. One update doesn't mean that these stocks are gone. What about UUU? Well, I wouldn't buy UUU here just yet. Shook everybody out, man. This is such a violent candle, but I love the comeback. Right? I love how this thing just bounced right back, shook everybody out. Now people who got shaken out would have to be buyers of this thing right back. But I just don't love names without earnings and sales unless they're like in an amazing theme. And I know that these are like rare earth plays, but your leader would be something like MP. This isn't such a bad. It's not nearly as extended from the 50 anymore. Percent. About 4.5 times its ATR from the 50. Let me check really quick. MP is 4.44 times its ATR from the 50. Yeah, I like the home building group. I think, my proper entry, was lower on these things, probably on 8-1 was the time to buy these things. I think I've kind of missed it, but I would just continue to keep my eyes on the group. MTH, Toll, Pulte, KBH. There's more than one. There's a ton of these things acting well. Journey, a bunch of these names acting well. Yeah, Uber's one of your leaders. I just don't see a setup here, though. I absolutely hate charts that are channeling higher. Like, I just personally can't stand these kind of setups. Like, I just don't see how to get involved in this. There's nothing explosive about that kind of price action. Just look at CrowdStrike, for instance, right? You like get into these channels and it's just like impossible to get into these damn things and like get some explosive price action through your buy spot where you can then just comfortably hold it, which is so annoying. So, that's part of like a requirement of mine when I go to buy something. I want something that's like tightly coiled so that there's explosive action from there so that when I buy it, it gives me a nice little push away from my average. And, I could trim some off into that nice explosion. So it's like, from compression comes expansion. And when price is just expanding in a channel, it's hard to get, like explosive price action from a channel. Uber is not a VCP. I wouldn't say Uber is a VCP. If it is, it's not a tight one. I understand that, this thing is building, right? It is technically building higher lows on the daily, but this isn't really compression. What's VCP is Tesla. Here you go. This is volatility. See this massive volatility? And then every time it comes up, it doesn't go as high and volatility is contracting. This is VCP. Yeah, NU. This name's been pretty good for a while. Don't know that I would be a buyer of this thing just here, right? Wedging right up into these little peaks where there's been supply every time. If this thing were to tighten up one more time and let me in, that would be awesome. Rocket Lab looking pretty good. Rocket Lab kind of hurts me a little bit. I own this thing way down here. Had I just held on to this, somebody just should have told me to hold on to this thing for a year. XYZ? No. Of all of the names in the market, I see the little flag here. I see it, but just zoom out on this thing. Will it eventually go? Maybe. But this thing looks still god-awful. Still in a stage 1 base. Let it break out. Not yet. Right? Like, yes, it's above the 200. Yes, it's flagging up. Let it show you like some secondary power and like make another move, then tighten up. My thoughts on Meta now. It could just be a very simple bounce off the 50 simple moving average. Like nothing overly complicated about this setup. Buy it as close to the 50 as possible. Use that as your guide. Yeah, SE had a nice setup, but yeah, it was just a little too quick. So I wasn't like SE kind of took off a little bit before Jerome Powell started speaking. And I didn't want to really get positioned in anything before he started talking. Right? You could buy this and then you would just, in some scenarios, if he started talking and the market didn't react well, you would just get slammed on and just take losses. Like my thinking was just let him say what he's got to say. Let him get it out of his system. Let him, talk and we'll see what stocks look like after the fact. And it just went and then held up perfectly. And, it is what it is. But it did have a pretty nice setup. Just a very simple, beautiful on the 60-minute chart. Oracle getting tight. Yeah, and potentially trying to bounce off the 50. Oklo, I don't know that I love the group, to be completely honest with you guys. I'm already out of it. I already took my gains. I was in this thing on whatever day this was here, 7/14. And yeah, it's just not perfect. Could this be a bounce off the 50? Names that bouncing off their 50s is typically pretty good to use as a guide. But, SMR has been a little bit weaker. CEG is just a little bit weaker. GEV just needs to finish building out. Like, okay, the way I kind of view it is this. Who is your leader in that power the data center space theme? Right? It's GEV. And then followed by VST. And then followed by CEG. So if those are kind of your large cap leaders, then your small cap leaders, if you were to say that, would be Oklo and then SMR and then, call it NNE, which is your super laggard. So if GEV and VST and CEG aren't really going, right, what are the odds that the mid cap names are going? Right? You always want to focus on group, and Oklo might look fine from a technical perspective, but from a group perspective, it's kind of weakening up just a little bit. Or at the very least, they're just in base building mode. And I don't want to come in to anything in potential just base building mode. Yeah, MBIS does not look bad. This was on last night's watch list, and I think it looks just fine. It'd have to take out Friday's highs. The only problem with NSSE, it's two things. It's one, it's super illiquid, meaning it only trades $7.5 million over the last 20 days, which is very, very thin. and it only moves 2.8%. So it's also pretty damn slow. So it's not very liquid. It's not very fast. Yeah, PGY is not terrible. This one trades $125 million and moves 10% per day. I mean, this thing is effing lightning. Size this thing properly if you do choose to play that. Yeah, so with AEHR, something like this, I mean, I saw that there was some news. So orders from hyperscaler on AI chip testing. I mean, I don't know. These earnings, not even just earnings gap ups, you can tell they've been going nowhere. This thing is tightening up. It would have to get up above, 20 and a quarter and stay above 20.75. Yeah, ANAT just tightening. I don't think ANAT looks all that bad. I don't think it's a great setup just yet, but it's not bad. A little bounce off the 20-day. MSOS looks pretty good. This looks like a little type flag shaping up here. It looks like MSOS is trying to go higher. No pun intended. It looks like it's trying to get higher. My thoughts on JPM. I think the group looks pretty good. The only problem with the JPM is it's slow, right? Unless you've got like an insane amount of capital to trade with, and I wouldn't use the word insane. Call it like $5 million or more. Then, maybe going to a name like JPM is fine. Other words, if you're going to own like commons, it's a little slow. MRCY, Aerospace and Defense. Yeah, this one could be a nice high volume close setup. It's got to get through 68 first. But yeah, MRCY, KTOS has been one of my favorites. I mean, dude, I had these things on the watch list down here. This was also kind of like a VCP. 35.5. DRS at the same time looked identical. Yeah, this group's not acting all that bad, although this is kind of looking like a bear flag. Just going to throw that out there. Nasty little move down, consolidating while the market's basically at an all-time high. That's a bear flag, dude. So I don't know. When you're looking at MRCY, just make sure that there's not a bunch of these breaking down like DRS, LOAR. Yeah, this doesn't look all that great either. What is it? HWM. I mean, obviously ASTS is in that group, Aerospace and Defense. Archer's in that group. Joby's in that group. On something like MRCY, you just need to see the high volume close taken out and just keep an eye on the group, right? If the group's acting like shit, then I would probably just pass. Yeah, I wouldn't be a buyer of SoFi just yet. It's wide and loose, right? You get this earnings gap up, you get this slam back down on an offering, you pop right back up, you slam right back down, you kind of grind right back up, you have a big volatility bar down, you pop right back up with the market. It's just like too much volatility here, right? Like I look at this and I go, man, this price action has sucked for the last month. And then now we're getting, it's not, it gapped up only to kind of give it back. But yeah, it's just a little too loose here. When I was trying to buy, SoFi was in here. And then I just got stopped out a few days later. But ultimately, it was coming out of this little nice tight base. You start to get up here and things start to get a little loose. Root. Yeah, this looks pretty terrible. Yeah, I would assume, on this earnings kind of a move, any moves back up into declining moving averages are probably pretty good spots to look on the short side. Yeah, VSAT, a little bit of a move lower this morning, but on no volume. Yeah, I mean, this doesn't look bad. I thought VSAT looked way better down here when things were a little tighter. You start to get up here and, yes, a high type flag, but who knows? No, Tilray's not for me. If I were to play the weed theme, it would be through the ETF. USAR, dude, I look at this thing and the first thing I say is, hell no. What I look at personally is just this nice whole dollar level 20, right? Good above 20, bad below 20. I look at everything underneath 20 and I feel like I'm on a roller coaster here. Same thing with this temp, TEM. Now, I like what it's doing because it's a recent IPO, but boy, I might lose my mind if I were like, love TEM and I bought this thing like, last year. If I bought this thing in last year, I would have had heartburn. Yes, I built my model book, but I wouldn't do it again. It was a long labor of love, and I don't need to do it again. Yeah, any thoughts on uranium names? CCJ is the one that I like as a company the most. Now, I will say this. When it comes to uranium names, in particular uranium, UUUU isn't really moving as a uranium name at the moment. It's moving more so as a rare earth play. Uranium names for me are more CCJ and UEC. And it's like really good to remember that, like for me, I always like to look at the underlying asset. So if I'm looking at like ExxonMobil and Chevron, I might be taking a, or Occidental or Devon Energy or Diamondback Energy, I would be looking at the price of crude, right? If I'm looking at an MSTR or if I'm looking at, a crypto related name, I might be looking at Bitcoin, right? If I'm looking at a tech name, I'm going to be looking at the QQQ. As it relates to uranium names, I'm actually looking at the price of U3O8, which is enriched uranium, which is the thing that these companies sell. Now, if enriched uranium is going down, which it's actually red on the year, I want to be a little bit more cautious with a CCJ. Now, I like them. I think that they're shaping up. I think people have kind of lost sight of the fact that, these companies mine and refine, in particular, CCJ, they mine and refine uranium, and that ends up being U3O8, which is used in nuclear reactors. So that's red on the year. So part of this move, I think, is just very thematic and not the fact that, they're making more money on the thing that they dig out of the ground. Eventually, I think that reality kind of sets in, and I don't personally know how much more juice is left in a CCJ. Could it go higher? Absolutely, it can. But I would really like to see the price of enriched uranium go up. That's like saying, oh, wow, gold miners are going up and the price of gold is going down, right? That's not like that is hard to like connect those dots mentally. Like, how the hell could the price of gold miners be going up, but then the price of gold be going down? Like, that wouldn't make much. There'd be a big disconnect there. So I am just kind of thoughtful of that before I go plowing into a CCJ. How about BE? Yeah, this one is acting like one of the best names in the whole market, like a leader. But there's no setup here. If you bought it on Friday and you snuck into this little pennant, fine. But there's no spot here. I was looking at this thing down here, right? 26 and a half bucks. Guys, we're up $22 from there. How do I treat wash sales? I don't think about it. Why would I think about wash sales? If you are if trading is what you do as a career, you should have trader tax status and file mark to market. If you don't, then you got to worry about wash sales. LMND, the real business in the real world sucks. But, this thing's hanging in there pretty well. COMM, I know they were selling a portion of their business. Dude, I was watching COMM here. How wild is that? $4. Now this thing's 15. How nutty. How long did it take me to build my model book? Like 2 weeks. Once the day came to actually print the pages and laminate them and put it together, like a full day of my life. Neo's a little extended here. Right? You can't, you had a little bull flag here. If you were paying attention to that, great. You can't fall in love with it up here. My thoughts on Roblox, I'm short. I'm currently short Roblox. We'll see what happens when it gets to its 20-day. All right, guys, I got to get rolling. I will see you guys all tomorrow. Thank you guys for the questions. You guys are the best. Please have a really safe start to your week, and I will see you all bright and early tomorrow morning. Cheers.